Got to keep the sound.
It's my privilege and honor to introduce Billy Meints, who was the founder and first commander of American Legion Post 265, Department of Washington. And here is Billy talking about how he got into the service and his experiences in the service.
Right.
So,
well, we were riding back from scout camp on about December the 7th, and on the radio I heard that Pearl Harbor had been attacked, so we all wanted to rush down at the moment to sign up. Well, we were in high school yet, so we did go to Chicago, signed up in the Naval Air Corps as a V5 in the pilot training program, and then in July the 1st, we reported for duty at Missouri Valley College in Marshall, Missouri. And the deal was with the V5 program that you were just in the chain, and as the need arose, why you would go to one semester, which is what we thought we were going to do, and we wound up going 3 semesters. And at that time, the war was just about over. I was transferred up to Chicago, right junior college, and going through an electronic program. And the war was over there on BJ night, and we all went down to central part of Chicago, and all the liquor stores were boarded up, but they were still selling liquor out the back door. And they had a great night, and watched it for a while, and decided that lipstick doesn't come off white, so we went back to Wright Junior College. And then from there we just escalated through the program, went to boot camp at Great Lakes, in the first aviation fundamentals company in Jacksonville, Florida, AF-1-45. And because I'd made Seaman First Class because of the Eddie program the Navy had,
what program was that?
Made me wing commander.
What was that program? 80?
That was Eddie program. After Captain Eddie, he was a guitar player. But he was an electronic man too, and so he devised this test. And after having had the math and so forth in school, in college, why they made me an instructor at Jacksonville then, in aviation fundamentals, and I stayed there for a year and couldn't make a rate because at that time the ratings were all at each naval air station, and most of the girls made 3rd class. Because they knew every ceiling in town, of course. And so we languished there teaching math because of my experience, and finally got to go to air traffic control school. At that time it was Specialist Y, a Navy way of designating what you were. Stayed there and went back to aviation fundamentals after graduation from the Spec Y school, and set up a mock lab. And it was very basic, had wire recorders, and they would snap frequently, and knew how to repair those. And the objective of aviation fundamentals was to give each of the boot camp kids, the higher end of them, a chance to see what each of the grades were like, each of the specialties, metalsmith, mechanic, and so forth. At the end of that 12-month period, you were selected to go to an A school, which was a basic school for that. So the air traffic control school was at Jacksonville, as I recall. And then after teaching air traffic control for a while and not making a grade, I received a set of orders to Seattle, Washington, and was in the tower at Seattle, made 3rd class there. And then they needed a petty officer and a seaman to go to Whidbey Island. Thought that was great. Whidbey Island, didn't know where it was, but it was, you went by the Muckleteel ferry line, so I knew it was in the weeds. And it was. Heck of a spot to go on liberty. So stayed at Whidbey Island, and may have made 2nd class there. Yes, I did. I was in charge of the tower. And then transferred finally to the Sunshine Land of Moffett Field, California, just south of San Francisco. stayed there for a while, and then had a chance, 2 years, got married, 1949, and so then we got a chance to go to radar school, GCA, ground controlled approach, and it was a part of elevating yourself in the pay grade. So I got a chance to go. So I had a 1940 Ford convertible and a 14-foot speedboat and a boxer dog and a wife. And when we arrived at Olathe, Kansas, I was broke, even after having drawn a dead horse. All military guys know what that is. And stayed there and graduated first in my class on that. And because of my air traffic control background, most of the guys in the class were radar men. And they had to change their rate over to air traffic controller. And so those guys didn't know too much about the tower end, and I knew that, plus what I got in school. So got my choice, and then I was from Peoria, Illinois, so I elected to go to Glenview, Illinois, which was a country club for the retired and reserve officers. Stayed there for about 2.5 years, and then made first class there. And then I got orders for Naples, Italy. And I went to B school prior to going to Naples, which I knew would help me make chief, which I didn't quite have the time and grade yet, but I would take the test maybe, and with luck I might make it, but I didn't. So anyway, went there from 53 to 55, and did make chief in Naples finally on the second go-around, 1955. Problem was in 1954, all the chief chief APs had it changed back to a rate. So the chief APs naturally selected air traffic controllers, and the whole list for 1954 was the APs. About 2 of the guys from school made it because they had the test memorized. So anyway, after 55, made chief in Naples and came back to Pensacola, Florida, which was the base for the Blue Angels, and got my tie pins from the Blue Angels and several other things from the Blues. And after that, we elected to go to Atsugi, Japan. And we had one child, one boy, born at Great Lakes prior to that, and overseas. Over in Naples, we had 2 boys born over there due to the long afternoon siestas, I guess. So we came back from Naples in 56, and with 3 boys, stayed at Pensacola for 2.5 years, left in 58. And went to Atsugi, Japan, as I mentioned, for 3 years there, and then back to Miramar, California, outside San Diego, for retirement. So I retired in October of 17th of 1963. So that ended my Navy career. Went to my retirement, went up to Oregon, and my in-laws had a motel up there, bar, but I did get a job at Fort Lewis as a squad leader, I guess they called it. Watch supervisor is what it was. And with the Army, it had its ups and downs. They would go civilian, and then they cut them back in a year or 2. And I was there for 10 years. And then got riffed once and back to 12 again, GS 12. And then opening came up in Fort Huachuca, Arizona. And because of the nice weather and everything, my father-in-law, he's a builder, and he wanted to go down south. So I said, I'll take that. Sounds good. GS 13 slot. Stayed there till I think it was 1973. That sounds about right, yeah. And went up to little town below Grants Pass, Weilerville. And then job openings came up in Fort Lewis for civilian controllers. Went up there and drove up immediately because job openings were slim, and made watch supervisor there and stayed there for about 10 years. And then the Fort Huachuca job came open as pay grade, which was good. And we were going to build down there, bought a lot and everything, then had a slight stroke and decided to retire on a disability. Then retired in 1974 and went to Fort Lewis. No, then I went to Oregon. That was it. So that's about all my career. And 3 boys all turned out well. Each went to one of the academies: Navy, Coast Guard, and Air Force, and did well in that. And the oldest came out a civil engineer, went to in the 5-year requirement. He went to Iceland and Hawaii, a couple of good spots. But he wanted to be a medic, so then he went back to medical school and UT pre-med, and finally got to be a radiologist, and then he got to be, with more training, interventional radiologist, and he retired in June of 2015. Very good. So the youngest one, he's a chiropractor in Albuquerque, doing good. And the middle one is in Osaka, Japan, and they're running 2 clothing stores and doing extremely well. So we have one grandson, my radiologist son's in Colorado State University. Youngest son, daughter, is in Denver, Colorado. Has a job there, about 28 now. Still single, having a good time.
Good.
That's about the end of my survey. Any questions?
The only question I have is basically, were there any events while you were in the service that were an aha kind of very interesting, or did you meet some very interesting people?
Well, we met a few nice people in our neighbors in Pensacola. We had our own home off the base, and our next door neighbor was in the training command, pilot commander, and they had 2 daughters, and they come over with our 3 sons, and they sit in the pool, you know, the little rubber pool together, throwing water at each other, and they were nice neighbors. Had a good time. All in all, didn't make a lot of money, but we had a good time, and the kids did well.
And all along, Barb was supporting you. It's kind of difficult for, I guess, all the military people understand that, but the spouse doesn't really have that much of an external life from the military. You know, they can't really have their own jobs because they always have to tag along with the.
Right, and that was the problem with. My wife was with a telephone company in San Francisco, and at that time, contometer operator, which is pretty high, but you couldn't find those jobs when you went to Olathe, Kansas, and Glenview, Illinois. So they were kind of stuck with jobs maybe in the commissary or in the BX, and well qualified and knew the right people and everything, but no jobs were open. And when you went overseas, they hired indigenous labor over there, and the round eyes didn't get a chance to work. Whereas some of the guys that come back from those stations say, when you go over there, your wife will get a nice job in the BX, you know. Well, there were none available. So that's the way the military did. Pressure on the community, and you took my job away from my civilian counterpart. That's their problem. So they're always trying to balance the commissary effect against the big stores in the local area, you know. Make it a little better, but not too much. So that's about it on that line.
What prompted you to start the American Legion post on the island?
What prompted? Well, I'd been a member of the Fleet Reserve. That's the Navy, Coast Guard, Marine benefit over in Naples. In fact, we started the chapter over there early on. And I just like the camaraderie of getting the guys together and shooting the breeze. The civilian don't appreciate a guy that put in 20 years or 30 years in the military. They're different breed, and you don't vote too much because you're in celerity. You know, you're on the base a lot and most of the time, and so it's a different way of life to get along with civilians. So it's just nice to get the guys together. And there are a lot more on the island than what we thought. And so I transferred from probably, don't remember now what American Legion post I joined initially, but decided it'd be nice to get together with the guys in the minimal amount of $40 to get in, you know, it's pretty nice. And we got quite a few when we first started. But we had a good adjutant too.
We had 70, right now we have 72 members.
Is that right? Fantastic. Yeah, that's great. And more coming, probably, younger guys. It's good.
Hopefully.
It's good. Yeah, hopefully, that's right. But all in all, it worked out real well. And I understand now that Post 265 is doing wonderfully well with the bingo. Gives them some money to work with, which is always a stumbling block. They don't have any money. So it's nice that the guys got together and doing that.
Well, I appreciate you sitting down with me and
Sure.
having this interview, and really appreciate your starting the Legion post on the island. That took a lot of effort on your part, and you were the one that stood up and did it.
Yeah,
And
right.
that's really what makes it important.
Yeah, that's right.
So thank you, Billy.
You bet. My pleasure.